Hello, my nerdy Nawg dogs. This is your video helper for our Math and Focus workbook, page 158 and 159 in chapter 13. So the first question reads, the length of a painting is 3 times its width. Its perimeter is 64 inches. Find the length. If you recall, we did this one together, so I'm going to go through this kind of quickly. But the way I kind of thought of it is, I always work with drawing, guys. It works for different brain types. But what we know is there's always going to be, if we're solving for perimeter, a side plus a side plus a side plus a side, right? That's our formula for perimeter. We're adding it all together. However, in this case, it says that the length amount is 3 times the value of that amount. So that instantly makes me think, well, whatever this amount is, the length is 3 times that. So I'm going to put 3 portions for my length and 1 portion each for the width. Okay, that's kind of how I explained it on the video. Because I know that all of these added up together are going to equal 64. Now, because I gave this a value of 3 times one of those, what we can then do is divide the total. So we know the perimeter equals 64. And we know if we add all of these together, it's going to equal 64. So now that I know that the value is 3 times one of those, if I solve for 1 bit or 1 unit, then I know what each unit amount is, okay? So my first mathematical bit, excuse my dog there, would be then 64 divided by, please quiet my dog, 64 divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 64 divided by 8 is 8. Okay, so then I know that this value is 8. And that would also tell me that this value is 8, that value is 8, that value is 8. This one, that one, that one, that one too. And then you would have to add them all together, right? And check your work, but that should end up as 64. So that is the problem we did together. The problem below is very similar, but it's solving for area. So area, we have a different formula, right? So it reads, the length of a dog run is twice its width. So right off the bat, I'm gonna draw my dog run. And I know that the length is 2 times as much as its width. Okay, now here's the deal. Let's see. And it says it's 50 square yards. So I'm sorry, I left that clue out. When it says square, we know that we're solving for area and that this is 2-dimensional. And so it's actually talking about what is inside here, right? So that then instantly tells me I can use the formula for area. What's the formula, nerdy Nawg dogs? You need to know this. Area equals length times width. Okay. So again, it says the length of the dog run is twice its width. Its area is 50 square yards. Find the length and the width of the dog run. Now remember, this is actually going to be 1 digit. We're not doing 2 parts necessarily, but this is showing that the value of this number is twice as much as this number. So what you can start doing is think about your factor pairs for 50. What are all the ways you can make 50, right? 1 times 50, 2 times 25. Keep it going, because what we do know is this number times this number equals 50. Okay? Now, once you get all of your factor pairs, you also have to find a match of factor pairs that when multiplied, this digit compared to this digit is twice as much. as that guy. Okay, hopefully that helps. We did this one. No, we did not do this one together as a group. So let me see if I can set this up. This one here I think is interesting. It says a rectangular garden measuring 15 meters by 8 meters is bordered by a house on one side as shown. How much fencing material is needed for the garden? Now again, it mentions fencing material. It's not asking us to fill in the grass. So instantly I know that it's talking about perimeter, right? So that means we need to add up all the sides. Now here's the other thing. It says one side. So it says a rectangular garden measuring 15, here's our 15, by 8 meters is bordered by a house on one side shown. How much fencing material is needed? I think this one you guys can figure out. It's bordered by the house, meaning you don't actually need fencing there. How do you solve for perimeter? With one side where you don't need fencing, you should be able to figure that one out. This last one is a little more challenging. And with Miss Cummins' group, I was able to do it on screen. But if you need a helper reminder, the first thing we look at, let's see, it says, Mrs. Evan covered the rectangular floor of her living room with a parallelogram shaped carpet as shown. The floor measures 5 by 7 feet. How much of the floor is covered with carpet? So as you see right here, the parallelogram, meaning a four-sided object or shape, is taking up a space on our overall living room floor. And the first thing we want to do is solve for the total possible area, right? So we know the formula for area is length times width, and so it shows us those values there, and that would end up being 5 times 7 equals 35 square feet. So that is the total value of that room in terms of area. However, she's got this carpet there. So what do I do? Well, we can then say if this full length is 7 feet, then can't we subtract this length, the 5/10 feet, from the 7 feet? Yes, I can. And you should remember from our decimals how to do that. If your whole number doesn't have decimals, you add in your zeros, right? Then I can subtract that as is. I actually don't even need that 0 there. But 7 minus 5/10, I don't even really have to do the math on that. That's subtracting 5/10, gives me 6 5/10. You guys remember that from decimals? So now I know that this here, the full length without the carpet, is not 7 feet. It's 6 5/10 when the carpet is there. So that is the new length when we account for the carpet. So the way I like to think of it is, what happens if I just moved this carpet over to this corner instead, right? So it's not taking up the whole room. And then I can solve for what's left. So what is used up is that 5/10. What's left is 6 5/10 times 5 feet. Okay, so that would be your new formula for the area that remains after the carpet. Solve for it, my friends. We did do multiplication of decimals, right? So quick reminder, how many digits after the decimal? If it looked like this, 5 times 6 5/10. How many digits after the decimal? 1, which means in your final answer, you go 1 skip over, and that's where your decimal goes. Okay, nerdy knock dogs, I hope this was a helper. Spend some time. I want you to think about how to get there as well.